this thing started so we can get you out of here in a reasonable time. I know originally the email said 6 to 8:30, and people that have been here for a long time are like, there's no way anybody other than you can talk for 2.5 hours. And I'm not talking tonight, so we'll be out of here way before 8:30, courtesy of your new executive director who keeps things flying through. So when you leave here at 7:15, make sure you give Paul a high five on the way out. For those of you who don't know, my name is Brian Bamnick. I'm the owner here at Great Lakes. Been doing this since 2012. We've been here since 2015. Obviously really excited to be a part of this fall every year. It's like our Christmas because everybody comes back. We get to have the crew back in town again. So really excited to kick off our fall. Couple of things. I'll let Paul talk about a lot of the specific details, and our staff will take care of the rest. First of all, this organization was built on parents like you who believed in our mission. Right when you walked in, our mission statement's on the wall, which is we use baseball as an avenue to impact kids' lives. It's nothing more than that. I taught for 4 years in the public school system, and I got a chance to be able to do what I love, which is be a part of kids' lives and mentor kids. And I just get to do it now without some red tape, and I get to wear shorts and a t-shirt every day instead of dress pants and a tie. And so for those of you who are new, we appreciate you giving us a chance to be a part of your kids' lives. We don't take that lightly. It's something we're very excited about. For those of you who have been here for a while, we appreciate you being back. And again, our numbers grow every year, and our organization grows because of our parents. We do very little marketing. I don't know why. I just don't invest in marketing. It's not really my thing. So it's parents like you that tell your neighbors, that tell your friends about our organization and what we're doing. We think we do things a little bit differently than other people. And so for those of you who are here tonight for the first time, welcome. We really appreciate you being here and giving us a chance to be a part of your kids' lives. And for those of you who have been here, welcome back. The one thing that I want to talk about briefly, a couple of things that was going, we have run a college program now. This is our 4th year. We run a prep program that Coach Ponsole runs. He'll come out and talk a little bit about it. It's basically a chance for us to be able to have athletes who graduate from high school that don't have an opportunity to play college baseball at the level they want to play at. They come to our postgrad program. We're one of about 12 to 15 programs in the country that run it. We're the only one north of the Mason-Dixon line. And this year we have a recruiting class of 25 athletes that will be here from all over the country. They come, they live here, they live in those apartments just down the road. So we're really excited about that, to have our first kind of big college program. And then there's some other news that's coming. I don't have a signature on a piece of paper, but in the next 5 to 7 days, you're going to get some news from us as an organization. We're adding on, we're expanding, so you're going to see an email coming out in the next 7 days of an acquisition that we just had. Really excited to be able to grow the brand into different parts of the state. And so you'll see that in the next 7 days. And then I, again, talked about the philosophy organization. We've talked a lot over the last 2 weeks. Our organization continues to get bigger, and with that, trying to be able to have that personal touch and have that transformational piece be a part of every kid's lives is something that we work really hard on. We run about 250 kids through here in the fall, which is a lot of athletes. We run about 1,700 through in a year. It's a ton of kids. Our goal is to make sure that everyone leaves feeling like they had a transformational experience. And so something that we'll be talking a lot about as a staff on our Monday morning meetings, which is we need to make sure that every athlete leaves here and it feels like our staff is pouring into them more than just on a baseball level. The best advice I got when I was coaching Division I baseball out on the Cape Cod, our head coach was talking about our ability to connect with athletes, and he said, remember, all of your jerseys are coming off one day. Make sure you're not left with just a reputation of being a good baseball player. And so it's something that we talk with our athletes a lot about, which is make sure you have more than just your ability to hit a baseball or throw a baseball. And so our goal over the next 12 weeks or 13 weeks is to make sure that your athletes leave and feel like they grew as a person, they grew as a baseball player, and they grew as a teammate. So it's something that we're going to spend a lot of time on. That will be it for me tonight, so that you don't leave here at 8:30. I'm going to pass the mic to our executive director, Coach Widener, who you did not get a chance to meet last fall. Coach Widener was with me as a 23-year-old. He worked for me for 3 years. and then got to chase the childhood dream, which is to become a Division I baseball coach. Went to the University of Creighton, Creighton University, and coached there for 3 years. Has since had 2 children, and now he is back. Him and his wife and their 2 kids are back in the cities. And so last September, Paul took over as our executive director. Some of you have not met him, so I'm going to pass the mic, and he will take from here. So thank you again for being here. Paul Widener.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for being here. Like you said, my name is Paul Widener. A lot of you have heard from me more than you care to hear from me via email the last few weeks. We're trying to do a good job of that, making sure that we're being very communicative with everybody, especially when it comes to things like, we'll talk about in a second, tournament attendance, things like that, that allows us to get way ahead of anything that we need to. But the guy that you've been hearing from more than you care to, that's me. And I'll make up for that by, like I said, hopefully keeping it pretty short tonight. So for some of you, the 3 years before I left, this is an older group, so some of you do remember me as the Director of Operations back from 2016 to 2018 before I did leave. Like you said, I'm now the Executive Director, and our Academy has grown a ton in that time. Our staff has grown a ton in that time. The biggest thing that I want you to hear from me before I get into more of the logistical things is everything that we have for the fall and that we base everything that we do around is trying to develop your athlete on the field and off the field and create a schedule and a structure and logistics and communication that allows you as parents to deliver that as best you possibly can. So we're trying to do that for you guys, which is why you hear a bunch from me and why we have the schedule set up the way that it is just every decision that we make is trying to make it so that you guys, your athletes can develop as much as you can, both on and off the field. And with that, and Brian said that, how many kids we have, there's 22 teams total this fall from 10U all the way up to 18U, which means that a lot of my job is going to be make sure that the staff that we have, both full-time and part-time coaches, all are delivering those exact same messages, which is pouring into your athletes, creating an environment that they teach a bunch about the game, they have high energy, they're constantly positive, and they're able to be appropriately disciplining kids when it's necessary, but for the most part, always positive, always having high energy, and trying to create that environment for everybody that comes through our academy, because it can't just come from me when we have 22 teams. We got to be able to make that permeate out through everybody, and we've tried to hire a staff, part-time and full-time staff that believes in that mission, and that they will be probably more of your main touch point for the entire fall season. So that's kind of a little bit about what I try to do on a day-to-day basis, logistics, as well as making sure that the rest of our staff carries out the mission that we have at Great Lakes. What your guys' role is, and the player code of conduct, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the player code of conduct with the players at some of their first events. I know there are some players here, but this is parent night, so we'll talk about the parent code of conduct specifically. We'll send that out in an email this week, and you guys can read through the details of it and then sign it and send it back. The main points of that parent code of conduct are essentially in place to try to create the best environment for everybody, coaches, players, and parents whenever you're at a baseball field. Okay, so a couple of the main ones. We obviously know in youth baseball all the way up through high school baseball, most of the time the umpires you get at the field is not the guy that just got done working AAA St. Paul Saints games, right? And even they're not very good. Okay, so the guys that you're going to get definitely aren't very good from time to time. We understand that. We know that ahead of time. Coaches from time to time may have some things to say about that, but it is very much an expectation and a hope for ours that parents will model a very positive response to ultimately bad calls that will happen on the field. Okay? Parents, that is part of your job, is to model what that looks like, to allow players to turn the page and not worry about the strike 3 call that was at the guy's ankles. Because guess what? It's definitely going to happen. All right? It's just the reality of the game. And it sucks, but it is what it is. And we want to make sure that you as parents know that you have a responsibility in that. Because if they hear that from the stands constantly, they will feel as though it is acceptable for them to also do that. All right? We'll hold the players to that standard as well. But parents, please do your best to also model that. So that's one of the main ones. And then the other main one, and this is, can be awkward to talk about, but we definitely want to get it out ahead of time so everybody knows that we're on the same page. For a lot of you as parents, moms, and dads, you have been one of the main coaches for your athlete growing up. Playing catch in the backyard, going to a batting cage and hitting. Maybe you've been actually their coach in association baseball growing up, and so you have had a lot of time being able to coach your athlete. It is very important to us that when they are at a Great Lakes practice or a Great Lakes game, that they are coached by Great Lakes coaches only, not parents. Okay? We are trying to create an environment in which they are able to look at their teammates and coaches and lean on them for support and them only. And whenever there is an environment where you have a parent that maybe is coaching their kid from right next to the dugout, trying to tell him that his hands are in the wrong place, or to stay down on the ball, or whatever it may be, that is not the environment that we want. And so I want you guys to know ahead of time that if we have to confront that in the middle of a game, it creates a very awkward and honestly negative interaction, and we do not want that. So please know ahead of time that it is our expectation that when they are at a Great Lakes event, practice or game, you as parents are not coaching them. You're there to be positive influences, cheering from the stands, and doing everything you can to give them good energy and support along the way, but it's really, really important that you allow our coaches to be the only ones that are coaching them. And that's super awkward, and that's the last even remotely negative thing I'm going to talk about tonight, but hopefully you guys understand that that's a really, really important thing for us, okay? Those are the main things that happen, that go into the parent code of conduct. We'll talk a little bit about like a 24-hour rule and things like that in a little bit. All that is also in there, and then there's some other things too that everybody is well aware of. We shouldn't even need to say, but we just put it in there, and then you'll sign it and get that back to us. And like I said, we'll send that out in an email later on this week. So thank you for being able to listen to that. Chain of command, so getting to some of the logistical things. Any team questions that you have, team questions meaning, so the tournament schedule comes out for the week and you're wondering what field you're at, when you're supposed to be there, what address the field is, what your opponent is, all that different type of stuff that is specific to your team for that weekend's tournament schedule. All those questions can be directed towards your head coach. I will also say, and some of you have gotten this information in the introduction email from your head coach, just note that if we're really lucky, a tournament schedule as far as locations and times of games comes out in the middle of the week before. Most of the time it comes out early the week of the tournament. So if you're wondering about what town or what field they might be playing at for the Lumberjack Open or whatever, that information is not going to come out until very near the tournament. You just have to be aware that you're playing local games. Local means you're in your bed at the end of the night, but it could be all over the metro. And then the dates obviously are on there that are pretty straightforward. But just know that any questions about that at any point in time, that can be directed to your team's specific head coach. Logistical related questions. So this would be questions regarding your midweek schedule specifically. So any Tuesday night, Wednesday or Thursday night hitting, which we'll talk about the schedule in a bit. Anything that's logistics for midweek, or I don't have a J band or uniforms or anything like that your head coach probably wouldn't worry too much about, but us as administration does. Those can be directed towards Matt Dornick. So he's going to be the one that's handling a lot of that. You've been getting a lot of the communication from me about midweek stuff up till this point, weekend stuff up till this point. And then eventually that's going to get passed over to Matt so he can take the logistical part of that the rest of the way. But high school parents, make sure that can go through Matt. And there's 14U group here as well. You guys, just so that you can do the same thing going forward, 14U can also be put into the category of Matt if you'd like. Tim knows the answer to a lot of those questions too. But as you guys transition from Tim to Matt, even the 14-year-old group here, if you have any questions, feel free to email Matt. Philosophy or program concerns. So that would be like, just an example, I'm not thrilled that we're playing a tournament on this weekend. Well, your head coach didn't determine that, us as administration did, so you can just, ask any of those questions about just the big picture things. That stuff can go towards me. And really anything about our academy's philosophy as a whole, big picture stuff, I'm happy to handle that. You can email me. And then any payment issues or financial things, nearly everybody here is all squared away for the fall, and there's nothing more necessarily to talk about, but anything regarding that, payment issues or financial concerns about the fall, those questions can go towards Brian. So a lot of different things to kind of digest here. There's no youth parents here necessarily, so Tim's not necessarily a part of it, but weekend specific schedules, head coach, midweek stuff / like logistics, jersey, J-bands, all that kind of stuff, Matt, big picture stuff, me, and then payment stuff can go towards Brian. Okay. Let's see. Okay, communication about missed events with Great Lakes. So this is a large majority of what you've heard from me so far has been trying to get ahead of any things that you might have missed or make you aware of a schedule coming up so that you don't miss them. Anything with missed weekday practice, so Tuesday night hitting, Wednesday or Thursday night hitting and pitching, or anything like that, you do not need to communicate that with anybody if you're not going to be at any of those. That's not because we don't care if you're not going to be there, it just doesn't change our practice plans no matter what. So do not worry about having to communicate with anybody that you're missing a Tuesday night academy practice or a Wednesday night, hitting or pitching. It's, again, not to say that we don't care, but it doesn't change our plans, so we don't necessarily need to know about that. Missed Saturday practice. So this is for our local teams only. Local teams practice on Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. out at Bielenberg. You can email just your team's coach. And the reason for that is because obviously if there's going to be a full 12 there, that practice plan can look a little different than if we're only expecting 6 because of some other, hockey tryouts or whatever it might be. So if you could just email your team-specific head coach about a missed Saturday practice so they can plan accordingly, that'd be awesome. Missed games and tournaments, this is the big one. Your head coach needs to know that information, and us as administration need to know that information both, so that we can handle filling the rosters on the backside if we do need to find any replacement players. Your head coach will need to know, obviously, to plan for the game, but we need to know because your head coach won't be the one that's reaching out to find more players. We as administration will use our different avenues to find replacement players if we need to. So please email both of us if you're going to miss any game or tournament throughout the fall. Any playing time or coaching decisions, and this is where the 24-hour rule that I talked about comes into play. We do have a 24-hour rule on a parent wanting to talk to a coach about any sort of playing time or coaching decisions. The reality is that most of those conversations don't start with, hey, I really appreciate that you've been hitting my kid third and playing shortstop, right? It's usually the opposite. So cooler heads will prevail after 24 hours, and you can write, hopefully a well-formulated email or text message that doesn't come off as being super aggressive, just expressing your concerns, because you do have the right to do that if you would like to. Just know that, the more aggressive you get, it does not necessarily mean you're going to get a better response. You might get a worse response. Just approach the situation with cool heads, and we know that if it's less than 24 hours, a lot of times that doesn't happen. If we allow for 24 hours after any given game, it absolutely, it has a lot better chance of being a more civil conversation. So, but again, you do have the right to do that if you'd like to talk to your head coach about it, but that would be something you would direct to your team coach specifically if you have any concerns on that front. Expectations as far as what they're going to bring to every single Great Lakes event. J-bands, mental journal, pen and pencil, Great Lakes red shirt, which is what you guys got in the back, black Nike hat, water, positive attitude. The J-bands are something that if you've not already purchased a J-band or you don't have one, you can get one of those afterwards as well. Mental journal is just any notebook of any kind with a pen or a pencil. Tim will talk a little bit more about mental journals when he comes up and talks, but we believe very heavily in them and their value. And it's difficult when a player keeps forgetting their mental journals because now they're trying to figure out, do I have a scrap piece of paper? Well, we know you can't look back at a scrap piece of paper because that's going to get torn up in the bottom of your bag. Good notebook would be great, and then a pen or pencil. Every single time you come to an event, we'll try to do some mental journals of some kind. Great Lakes shirt, pretty straightforward. We'll try to get that to you so that everybody has at least one of those. Black Nike hat. Proper baseball attire indoors. Shorts and turf shoes are great. So any hitting or pitching you do indoors here at Great Lakes. Shorts and turf shoes are totally fine. Everything that's done outdoors. So Tuesday night practices, Saturday morning practices, that is white pants, black socks, black belt, and long sleeves. Had a question in the previous group about different types of pants. Brand of pants does not matter. Plain white pants is very much our preference, just plain white pants. If you absolutely needed to, and I hesitate to even say this because I really want you to make every effort you can to have plain white pants, one black stripe down the side is an acceptable pair of pants if you're not able to find an alternative. Red stripe, purple stripe, blue stripe, please do not wear those under any circumstance. We'll figure something else out, okay? Plain white pants, or if absolutely necessary, one black stripe down the side. Brand doesn't matter. High or low pants also doesn't matter, whatever you want. But then black belts, black socks are the things that go with that. Usually on Tuesday nights, there's like 1 or 2 kids that forget a belt, and we don't necessarily punish them in any way, but we definitely make fun of them a lot. Okay? So please don't let your kid be the one that gets made fun of for an hour and a half on Tuesday nights because they didn't remember a belt. All right? Long sleeves, we'll be clearer about like what the temperature expectation is on this. I can't remember what the number is exactly, but we usually say if the temperature at all is going to dip below X degrees, it is mandatory that you are wearing sleeves or that you at least have sleeves to put on. If you do not have sleeves at that point in time, we will send your athlete home. That is just a safety thing. If they're not able to keep their bodies warm, it's a higher risk of injury, and we do not want any part of putting them in a situation to get hurt. So if it gets below a certain temperature, we will not allow your athlete to practice with us if they do not have sleeves. So it'd be a great thing right now to put in your kid's bag, just have sleeves. People ask about the color of sleeves. Obviously the preference would be black. That would be the best color to have. If it's the difference between you're wearing a purple sweatshirt or you have to go home, please wear a purple sweatshirt because we still want you to practice. Okay, that's totally fine. But the best thing to do would be to have long black sleeves or a black hoodie they can put over to be able to practice at night. So travel. So let's talk, we won't get too detailed into what specific hotels or what specific tournaments you guys are in because it varies from team to team and age to age. And all of you should have gotten that information about what tournaments you're in emails from me already. But just know this. So for transportation, anybody that's 15U and younger, no matter what, national, local, doesn't matter, all of your tournaments, your parents, you as parents are the ones that are getting them there and you're staying in the hotels that we make blocks for you and all that stuff. Everybody 15U and younger, it is you guys as parents are driving them, getting them in hotels, all that stuff. For our 16U and older local teams, when you guys have the one tournament down in Kansas City at the end of the fall, you guys are also, for that one tournament, responsible for getting your kids there, driving down, and making your own hotel reservations in the block that we give you. Our 16, 17, and 18U national teams, when they play in tournaments in Indianapolis, Cedar Rapids, those types of things, for those parents that are here, that is where it resembles a little bit like we did in the summer, where we rent team vans, and they're staying in team hotels. Now, you do know, if those of you that played in the summer, there will be a link afterwards where you will have to pay for, however much we end up getting at the end of it, however many nights, however many rooms, and the cost of the rental van, it'll be split evenly amongst the team, and there will be a payment link sent to you, so that's not necessarily free, but the logistics of it mean that you meet here at the facility, and we drive your athlete in team vans, and they stay in team hotels with the coaches. That's for our 16, 17U, and 18U national teams for the multiple tournaments that they play in throughout the fall. But everybody else, other than that, all the travel is done where you're booking hotels and you're the ones responsible for getting your kids down there. And specifically what hotels and where your room block is, that will be sent out to you in emails on a team-by-team basis later on. So we won't get into the details of what that looks like, but that's how it's divided up from a travel and logistics standpoint. I'll stop here. Does anybody have any questions about that? Just to make sure that we know what that looks like. Good? Okay. Practice schedule. So this is the very basic practice schedule, and then we'll break it down a little bit more as we go through day by day. But the very basic practice schedule. Monday nights is Culture U or mental conditioning. Josh Ketchmark will talk a little bit more about that when he comes up. But that's up here in Woodbury. That's every Monday night for everybody that's here. Tuesday nights, defensive skills night over at Northwestern. Depending on your age and what team you're on is what time slot you have. Again, that's specific to your team, and you've received an email about what that looks like. Wednesday and Thursday night, pitching and hitting development. One thing to clarify about the Wednesday and Thursday, so there is an option for Arden Hills and there's an option for Woodbury. You will be choosing one of those locations to do all fall and stick with that one location all fall. So if there is a Wednesday in Woodbury and a Thursday in Arden Hills, for example, we do not want you to come to both. You'll only come to one, and if you come to Woodbury for your training, we don't want you to come to Arden Hills, and that's just to allow us for space and staffing. So we'll get a really good sense of what it looks like the first couple weeks and what we need. But for those of you that looked at your weekly team schedule that I sent out and you saw Arden Hills and Woodbury, just know that you're only choosing one of those to go to, okay? And then for those of you that are lifting, and Landon and Nate will come up and talk about that in a bit, but those of you that are lifting as well, we've tried to make it fairly convenient so where it lines up with the time of your facility hitting and pitching kind of bumped up to it as much as we can. So we tried to make that logistically easy, but just know that can be the only confusing thing that when we talk about the schedule, you go, I see Arden Hills, I see Woodbury, I see some on Wednesday, some on Thursday. You're just picking one of those nights, so you'll only hit and pitch one time for the entire week. Saturday team practice, again, this is only for our local teams. Our national teams do not practice on Saturdays. Our local teams team practice on Saturdays from 9 to 11 out at Health East. Again, Monday, 7 to 8 p.m., 14 to 18U. Tuesday, I'm going to fly through this because it's been sent out to you specifically what your team does, and this can be a lot to digest. But this is everything that we have going on Tuesdays for the entire academy. Wednesdays, everything we have going on. So again, this would be a good example of like, so varsity, obviously, you wouldn't hit in Woodbury from 4 to 6 p.m. and then drive over to Arden Hills and do it again, right? You're just picking one of those. That's a good example of it. And Thursday, this is what we have. Nothing on Fridays. And then Saturdays, these are all the teams. All of our 14U teams, both of them are practicing. And then 15U local, 16U local, and varsity local are all practicing 9 to 11 a.m. out at Health East every Saturday. So our practice staff, this is what it looks like for our midweek stuff. The on-field practice on Saturdays for our local teams, our 14U and local teams, that is run by the head coaches of your specific team. So you guys will have the ability to get in front of them, and we'll run it a little bit like a group, but your specific head coach will be there to run that practice with you. This is for our on-field midweek staff, our midweek practice staff. On-field Tuesday night, Brian Bamanek, Matt Dornick, Josh Ketchmark, Tim Peshu, Mike Ponsole, Travis Rogers, Paul Widener, and Joe Zorn are all of our on-field staff. Hitting, read that. Lifting, I'll let those guys introduce themselves in a second. And then our pitching staff right there for all of our pitching development that we have on Wednesday and Thursday night. So that's who you can expect to be working with your athletes every single week. Midweek stuff, and like I said, Saturday practices are run by the head coaches of the specific local teams that we have. So with that, I'm going to let all of our full-time coaching staff members come up and introduce themselves, just so they all know. I'll have Nate and Landon, you guys can touch on things after Josh will have his stuff. So.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys can go. Mike, go ahead.
My name is Mike Ponsole. I'm the head coach director of our Minnesota Postgrad. It's our college level program, if you're not familiar. Again, kind of the age right now where that's a conversation to be had about college level and positives and negatives of all of it. So I do help a lot with recruiting just in general. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or people that do know me, they can kind of talk among parents of stuff I've done for them or not, of just what's good and bad about kind of all the whole college level and everything involved with it. I do also coach our 18 Red as well, help all those guys, so I'm around all the time, guys see me here every day. So.
Tim Pashuk, I am our youth program director, and then I am in charge of running all of our hitting programs here, and then I also coach our 16 national block.
Name's Matt Dornick, I'm the pitching coordinator, coach the 17 national black, and then do a lot of the operational stuff for the high school age groups.
Josh Ketchmark, I work with Mike on the postgrad side, and then on the high school side, I work with a lot of the leadership character development stuff that we'll talk about, and I coach the 15 national this fall.
You guys introduce yourself after the national. Go ahead, Josh.
All right, so character development for those of you that are new, this is just for 15 and up, right? 15 up, okay, so 15 and up, those that are 15, this is new for you. This is basically the 4 pillars that we have up on the wall: grit, self-discipline, self-awareness, and servant leadership, which are kind of the pillars we run by. It's not just talking about the what, the why, which obviously is a big thing, but also the how. How do I actually implement these things into my life on a daily basis, on the baseball field, off the baseball field? Teaching a lot of character things that go along with that. For guys that have been in the program for longer, it'll be a lot more open discussion of, how can we start applying it, even on a higher level, and then talking a lot about leadership as well. So this will be offered on Mondays. Travis and I are kind of working through which Mondays, who's going to go, but every Monday you'll have something. It'll be mental conditioning or character stuff with me.
Did you say 15? It is 14, sorry.
Sorry, 14 and up. 14 and up.
Good. You guys come on up. Sure.
Hey guys, I'm Landon Mester. I'm the Director of Strength and Performance here at Great Lakes. I oversee all of the physical development of our kids. Nate Wells, our sports scientist on staff, besides being incredibly knowledgeable, both as a strength coach and as a sports scientist, he handles all of our data management and then athlete recovery as well. So anytime we have road games or people out with an injury, he and Matt typically help those guys get reacclimated once they're done with PTs. So we'll be the ones seeing your kids in the weight room and handling some of those more nuanced performance nutrition type questions. So we run a high performance model here. High performance seems very intuitive. But unfortunately, it's not actually run this way. So in a traditional model, you see an athlete get pulled in many different directions. So they might have their sport coach telling them one thing while their parents have heard another thing, while their doc or PT is telling them this type of a thing, or their body gurus going this direction. Okay, so the athlete's getting mixed signals. Obviously, that does no one good, but it does. Everyone gets to keep their ego, I guess. Okay. The high performance model is something that all professional teams and good college programs do, okay? It requires a tremendous amount of communication, and you have to admit to being either wrong or outranked by someone else and allow them and their expertise to serve that athlete. And so when Nate and I got brought on here a few years back, this is something we implemented, so we don't claim to know everything that goes on at practice or what Matt might be seeing from a pitching perspective, okay? And so when we're talking about an athlete's development, it's really all of our coaches pouring into that athlete from each of our various buckets, okay? So your kid's not gonna be receiving hitting advice from me. That wouldn't make any sense, okay? But what he will receive from me is a strength coach's perspective in the weight room and then on the field as well. So that's how we run our weight room here. Team Builder, I introduced this last fall and we've run it for over a year now. It's a virtual weight card. So all of the athletes have their weight cards. We used to print out sheets. They'd have to pencil things in, save them in a folder. The cards would get trashed after a while, get up a new one, whatever. So with Team Builder, it's all on their phone. I can track basically everything that they do right from there. All of the workouts for really that season, but specifically that week and that day are laid out for them. And then they have videos along with each thing. So there's a couple of you who are traveling great distances, who are only able to work out with us one day a week, those special occasions. Your athlete, if they have access to a separate gym, can do the same workouts on their own with the use of this tool. And so Team Builder is really great at providing them basically a virtual strength coach through the app. So the videos on there are of Nate or our interns doing certain movements. They can also message us through the app as well. We do daily wellness questionnaires. This goes a long way in keeping our athletes healthy. So injuries cannot be perfectly predicted, okay? If someone could do that, well, one, they'd be super wealthy and we wouldn't have injuries. So they're impossible to predict, but using these wellness questionnaires, basically every day, Nate takes a look at these, sees how your guys are sleeping, feeling, fatigued, things like that, and buckets them based on those needs. And so essentially we get a baseline for where they're at. And what we look for is not necessarily, oh, they dropped from a 4 to a 3, but what we look at is they're a 3 normally, and today they're a 1. So something's going on. Okay, and that cues us into some type of stressor in their life, either physically or emotionally or whatever that may be. And if that happens, if they're flagged, then we pull them out of regular programming onto a recovery protocol and basically try to nip that potential injury in the bud. So that's a super advanced technique. We're really grateful to have Nate on staff to run something like that. This is an example of a weight card. Pretty simple and straightforward. You can see things get checked off as they go. They've got sets, reps, and the weights are prescribed as well, so they don't have to be attempting to do any math, and then the system will learn each athlete as they go. This is something we do for all of our lifters as they're on the road. So not only if they have access to a gym will we program lifts for them, but anything that they might need in between games, morning of games, preparation, recovery type stuff, all gets dropped in there as well. This one has been super helpful. This summer we used it a ton, and it essentially just allows our athletes to maintain a higher level of play through those longer tournaments. We've been introducing new technologies into the weight room. Specifically, we use the jump mat up top for a ton. So a jump mat is a vertical jump tester. Every week, our kids come in and they do weight, and then they do a jump test on the mat. I don't need to get into specifics, but basically what Nate has done is taken the weight and the jump mat, and on top of the wellness questionnaires that we use, we track this for auto-regulation purposes as well. And so essentially your athlete should have a pretty continuous vertical jump height, trending upward as we train. If they come in after some road games or anything like that and their numbers are down, usually over 15 to 20% down, that's a red flag as well. So that questionnaire is a red flag, and then things like this also flags us that, hey, their central nervous system is taxed for some reason, they need some special attention. And so that goes a long way. Not only do we test vertical jump to see if our program is actually doing what it's supposed to, but it's another kind of a safety check for our athletes. We use the Dasher system, that's laser timing gates. We use Cal Dietz' 10-20 method out of the U of M to measure different metrics to bucket athletes, and then we test our 60 times regularly. As we get into some more advanced technologies, Nate and I, especially Nate, loves to be on the cutting edge of some technologies, and so we've played around with some DBT and some force plate type testing. That's incredibly high level. Even like a lot of Division I's are just dabbling in that area. Nate's a wizard when it comes to that stuff, and he ran all of that when he was at the U of M. So we're lucky to have that start to coming into play here. So as those technologies come available to us, we will make them available to your athletes. Supplements I want to touch on really quick. This is not a sales pitch, please don't hear that. Supplements is a real thing for college athletes, especially tainted supplements. Okay, if you did not know, supplements are not regulated by the FDA. So it does not matter what it says on the bottle, it does not mean it's in there. Okay? They don't have any incentive to put what's in there as what's on the bottle. That includes vitamin D from Target. Okay? Literally any supplement is not, no one's checking to see what's in there. And not only that, is they might get close, but then there'll be some variability between pills. So a study came out on melatonin, which unfortunately gets overused and abused by athletes your age because they think it's supposed to help them sleep. And what this independent testing did was found that in any given pill of melatonin in a bottle could vary 10 to 50 milligrams in melatonin. Okay, so that is a tremendous amount. So maybe it's like a 5 milligram bottle, right? You're supposed to get 5. Well, one pill could have 55. Okay, so I don't actually care if you use Thorne. You get a discount if you use it through us. Nate and I have been, we use that personally. We've been lucky enough to be able to partner with them. But really, this is what you need to look for. This Certified for Sport is the thing to look for. So if you're taking any vitamins, if you're taking any supplements, creatine, protein, anything like that, please make sure it has that. So beyond, popping for steroids because of a tainted supplement, just general health and well-being, this is something to know. Most people do not know that. Last thing I'll share is just some anecdotes from our players. Every year we try to come up with different ways on how we could share, you know, how the weight room translates to the field. How do we highlight guys who have had success in the weight room on social media or to the parents. You know, sometimes I send out an email, sometimes it's a post, whatever. I just wanted to highlight 4 of our athletes here tonight, and these guys are by no means the only ones doing it. I look out and I see a lot of my guys here who put in tremendous work day in and day out and see a lot of the results. I kind of bucket them in a couple different categories. AJ and Aiden, sophomores this year, they've been in the weight program. This will be their 3rd year now. And so those guys were scrawny little buggers when they came in, really little fellas, and they just kept getting dropped off every day. Every day we added size and strength primarily. Their first year and a half was a real grind. It was a lot of, hey man, got to eat a little more. Let's try to lift this weight again. Really kind of rudimentary type stuff, and I'm really proud of them and many others for sticking with that through that phase. That early phase can be tough, and so after that first couple of years, they were able to. Their training age was high enough to push them into some more difficult training methodologies, and what that did was take that base that we built on and really translate that out. And so they had in CMJ's a counter movement jump, so it's that vertical jump test that we were talking about earlier. Specifically, their hands go on their hips, so they're not allowed to use any upper body momentum. They can't cheat it. And so you can see here that all of their numbers are up, but that CMJ is really the sweet spot. Baseball is a power sport, so it's really cool when our athletes, you know, can deadlift, you know, 350 pounds, which all these guys can, but how does that actually translate into the sport? And so it's actually moving that weight fast, okay, and that's power. That actually does translate. And so Nate runs all these metrics. He works incredibly hard with Tim and with Matt to make sure that what I'm doing in the weight room makes a difference in here and then on the field. And so AJ and Aiden saw pop in there, and this is just over the last year. AJ topped out at 83, and then Aiden hit 80. And so that's just a tremendous jump there for their Mountain Velos. Charlie Rowan, exceptional kid, comes in, works hard, has a great attitude, just small. And I don't want you to look up here and go, oh, went from red to black, and think anything about being on the red team. I think all of our guys last year from the red team went on to play college ball. They get no different treatment, okay? It is a very rare thing for a kid as a junior to go from a red team to a black team. Typically, there's just the volume of guys who are better than you at that age. That's a tough bridge to gap, or it can be. And Charlie has been one of the most consistent lifters. Put on 30 pounds, really took that nutritional aspect seriously. CMJ went up tremendously, and then obviously his raw strength did as well in that deadlift max. And so just trying to share some of the success stories that guys who have really put in work and how that's translated. The last one I want to talk about, Keenan. He's, if you knew him 2 years ago, and when he walked in the weight room, it was like, all right, time to babysit, okay? He was kind of an aloof kid, real whippy, really good pitcher, just needed a lot of support in the weight room, keeping him on task, keeping him focused, kind of was here going through the motions. We sat him down and just said, hey man, we need you to lock in. We see some potential in you. If you can come regularly and work hard while you're here, we really think something could happen for you. And so he decided that this past year was the year he was going to do that. He did not miss a day in the off season beyond weather. And every time he was here, he was pushing himself. Now, obviously, I'm here to keep your athletes safe, but only they can know if they're really giving that 100% effort. It's easy to do the work and go through the motions, and that's better than nothing, certainly, but then there's going through the motions and really training. And so Keenan kind of blew us all the way this year. never missed a beat, pushed himself incredibly hard. He's a senior now this year. Couldn't get out of that 87 mile per hour range, sat there for almost a year, committed himself here, gained 20 pounds, gained 6.5 inches on his vertical, which is astonishing. And there's some really neat studies that tie vertical jump to your exit velo on the mound, and so there's a direct correlation there. And so when Nate saw that his vertical jump was improving the way it was no surprise to us that he topped out at 93 then in the off season. So just really unique success stories that we thought we'd share this year to kind of highlight what you or what your athlete could achieve and why physical training is so important. So like Paul said, and I'm sure you saw it in all the emails, I'm super pumped this year to Brian and Paul and I put our heads together. We laid out a schedule. In years past, we've kind of left it open, come when you can. That really hurt attendance. So this year we built all of the weight room times around a baseball event or practice session in here, okay? And so if guys are here for mental conditioning, for hitting or pitching, or are coming into the cities for Tuesday night practice, whatever it might be, we try to align something both at Arden Hills and here so that if you're a parent who's dropping off their kid, it's easier for them to be able to be in the weight room, and it's not an extra drive on Fridays or before or after or their regular scheduled programming. So I believe I sent this all to you already about a week ago, maybe a week and a half, and I know Paul has alluded to it as well. If you did not get this from me or have any other questions or concerns, I would love to chat with you. And we can sign up if there's a time conflict, even something you just can't make work, we will figure that out as well. We want to adhere to this schedule as closely as possible because it works out for both a team setting and a logistical standpoint, but we are more than willing to make whatever we can work. So I'm really excited for these offerings this fall. And we've already got a ton of signups, and it's going to be a really fun fall, and I'm hoping to add more names to that slide you just saw earlier. Thank you.
Before I have Tim come up, I just want to talk a little bit about the weight room stuff. This is kind of just a plug to talk about in general. So we talk about how important it is for your athlete to develop from year to year, and we completely understand that the hitting and the pitching that we put them through is the baseball-specific development that they need to make strides. If you want to see the biggest stride in your athlete from a velocity standpoint, from all these different types of things that will just allow your athlete to be able to physically compete at a level above what they currently are at, there is no better or other solution than getting in the weight room, period. And that is coming from, I've coached a few different levels, both ages and levels here, but also coached at Division I level, done some other college coaching. The biggest difference between level to level of athlete is their physicality, period. That is it. So if you are wanting to see the biggest development, in my opinion, obviously you've got to be doing the hitting and pitching. But if you can't hit a baseball, doesn't matter how strong you are. If you can't throw strikes, can't make your kinetic chain work well, doesn't matter how strong you are. But there will be so many athletes that will get to a great spot in those areas. They'll understand their hand-eye coordination, they'll understand how to throw strikes and make their body work, their kinetic chain work to be able to throw effectively. But if they are not physical enough to be able to do it, they will be staying at a level lower than those that are physically able to handle it. And physicality and the weight room are directly correlated. Okay, so I cannot tell you enough how much I encourage you to please, please, please get in the weight room and be doing that with this group. And it is a lot different, obviously, than, I got a membership at my local YMCA, and I'm going to go do biceps and triceps and squats every day and try to figure it out from there. The things that they put you through are very data-driven and very correlated directly to baseball-specific performance. The things they talk about in this slide, There's a reason why they do the CMJs, because it's directly correlated to more velocity as a pitcher. Because the more explosive you are with those types of movements, the better you're able to, the more effective you're able to make your body move and be more explosive. Directly baseball specific correlated movements, exercises, and growth to make sure that your athlete is physically able to compete at the level that they want, okay? And I cannot stress enough how much I want that to be something that you consider doing for the fall. I realize that it's a separate thing from your fall package. Some of that is for the benefit of the athletes logistically. So we've made that decision for multiple different reasons. We know it's separate, but I would highly, highly, highly consider making sure that you do that for your athletes' development. Can't stress enough. With that, I'll let Tim talk about the hitting side of things.
My name's Tim. We're going to talk about hitting real quick. So I'll be running all of the Wednesday and Thursday night hitting stuff in Woodbury. Then working with Paul and Josh on programming for Arden Hills, but they'll be running those programs. Otherwise, I am in charge of running all things hitting here at Great Lakes. So biggest thing that we talk about is our hitting roadmap. So those of you that are 14, your program looks a lot different than those of you that are 18 that are here. So our 14-year-olds, we spend a lot of time in the pits, in the garage, working on our swings, working on becoming better hitters, and focusing on things that will play long term. Our 18-year-olds, this is kind of your last season. We are focusing exclusively on how well can we get you to play this weekend. So like our 17-year-olds this summer, our entire focus was like, we're going to Atlanta this weekend. We got to be ready to play in front of 20 Division I schools. How can we do that? With our 14s and 15s, it was, hey, there's might be a couple of schools there, but there's probably not. So we're going to focus more on what can we do to get you ready for when you are 17 and there are 20 Division I coaches. So 14-year-olds, when you come to the facility and you see an 18-year-old getting high velo on the machine, and then we turn it off and tell you that you're going to be swinging an underload bat, there's a reason for that. The underload bat helps you produce more bat speed. More bat speed makes you hit the ball harder. Okay, those things that are important. When you get to 17, then we don't have to continue to do that. So that's kind of how the hitting program will work. Is different ages, different levels, different teams. You all will get different programming just kind of based on where you're at. So that we're giving your athlete the best thing for him and not just like the hitting program for today. Okay, so each hour looks a lot different just depending on what team you're on, how old you are, kind of where you're at developmentally. Only thing I have to do is some of the tech we're using. So we're going to be using Rapsodo a fair amount this fall, and we'll use it a ton. If you're in a winter hitting program, we use it all the time. Great way to track exit velocities, launch angles, distance, things like that. And then we're able to take those numbers and help basically figure out, are we getting better at baseball? Are we seeing the growth we're looking for? But also, what other areas can we have? So one of the things that Rapsodo does is gives you a spray chart, gives you kind of a heat map for yourself on what balls you're hitting well. And I can look at that and say, insert athlete can't hit a ball in this spot of the zone. Awesome. Now he does this really well, but he can't hit the ball on the inside part of the plate. Now I know to focus on that, and that's something that gives me clear data. Like when he hits the ball on the inside part of the plate, it's 15 miles an hour slower than when it's on the outside part of the plate. Super valuable information, something that I can't otherwise do. And for those of you that have blast motion, something we've introduced over the last year and a half, it's been an incredibly valuable tool, especially in the winter time for athletes. It is the biggest thing is immediate feedback. I watched a kid who's going to go play Division I baseball next year, who is like, if you watch him in the weight room, you're like, man, that guy gives 110% every time, throwing weights, doing stuff. You're like, that guy is an absolute animal. And he's like, I'm giving 100% on the turf. And I'm like, are you? He goes, well, I think so. And I was like, we slapped the blast motion on, and he was like, oh, that's not very good. And I was like, yeah. And then 4 swings later, went up 12 miles an hour in bat speed. Purely because he finally realized, like, I was doing 100%, but I was doing like 80%. Because it was his game speed. And then he went from being able to hit balls 95, 96, 97 to 102, 103, 104 with consistency. Because he figured out that I wasn't going as hard as I can in practice, so when I was getting into like gameplay or things like that, it wasn't translating as much. Okay, so that's been a huge tool for us. That is a thing we'll use a lot in the winter. We use it some in the summer. Fall is not the greatest time for us because we're only going once a week, but something that we still utilize on the tech side.
Oh, right here. Yeah.
Nope. That's it.
All right, I'll give you guys a good perspective of what pitching, but not just pitching, but what throwing in general looks like during the fall. So our big things are our team practices, pre-game, and then our pitching training during the week where we will see throwing activities. Each time we're on the field or on the turf, so for example, Tuesday night practices, depending where that Tuesday lines up, is it in the middle of tournaments or do we not have a tournament until 2 weeks, will dictate the level of throwing that each athlete will be on. So not every day needs to be long toss to the max, hard on the way in. So we'll have that kind of programmed out so that we're building up an athlete's arm rather than exposing it to too much intense throwing. So that's kind of what the chart on the bottom kind of outlines the different days of throwing that we have here. Recovery days are super important, especially if you're coming off a Sunday where you threw 4 or 5 innings. That Tuesday and that Wednesday or Thursday practice from a throwing perspective should be a little lighter. So that's how we'll kind of monitor that from a day-to-day basis. When we do live ABs on Wednesdays and Thursdays, not every week will be a live AB. If it's in the middle of the tournament schedule, we'll have different activities from a pitching, mechanical, movement, drill side blended in. But the live ABs, what Tim and myself do is we'll have everything charted out, and this will play into both a competition basis but also an improvement basis, as our leaderboards will track strike percentage, walk rates, hard hit percentage. So we'll build in some of the things we really want to be good at, track that, create a little indoor competition each week. For pitchers during those live AB scenarios, we'll have different scenarios set up. So we'll force one of your batters you face today, you have to start with a changeup. So these indoor scenarios of live ABs allows us to be more comfortable with failure. Things we don't want to try for the first time in game, we can try in the facility. So we can get that learning and that growth from that perspective. During our throwing, both on Tuesday nights in the facility pre-practice, we will implement a lot of different drill throws. And these have a lot of different setups, a lot of different purpose behind them. But it's to challenge the athlete from a throwing perspective, from explosive and rotational means. A lot of throwing can get so static where you don't, if I'm throwing 60 feet, I really don't need to use my entire body in lower half. I can get the ball there. But that's not really helping an athlete in the long term. If we can make every throw have really solid mechanics, good lower half, we're eventually going to build compound interest on that throwing and be able to throw. Arm care is huge. We have about 7 or 8 different arm care exercises that we blend in. So this will be part of every single practice plan. Tuesday nights, Saturday practices, live ABs, post game. Can't throw, can't get better. So we're going to make sure we do the things necessary to throw. On the right is kind of a high-level philosophy of where we want to be from a throwing perspective on the mound. It's a lot more than just velocity, throwing as hard as we can. We want to be good at a lot of little different things that are going to help develop the complete pitcher. And one of our big focuses is going to be command and control. And if we think back to the amount of throwing that happens during practice, a lot of throwers see that practice throwing is a warm-up to practice. Coaches will say, go online, get loose. But that throwing is practice. That's the practice of throwing. So if we take the mindset of making every throw have a purpose, while we're at 60 feet, while we're getting loose, eventually we command, throw with better mechanics. We're going to be better than if we just have the mindset of getting loose. Having a purpose to every single throw. On the right, you'll see our dugout chart, and this will take athletes through in-game goals, in-game philosophies from a pitching perspective, what we want to be good at that will help give focus to success rather than just outcome-based what happens in-game. So a lot of attacking the zone, first pitch strikes, being mentally tough, a lot of that stuff. So they'll get familiar with this sheet when they see it in-game in the dugout. Biggest thing is we want to throw to get better at throwing, and if you watch the late Jose Fernandez, he's making a very, very short, light throw, but you can see he is very mechanically sound, lower half going first, top half going second. So I show this because even in those very small, light throws that we start our throwing progressions at 45, 60 feet, we can still do those with mechanics that are going to reflect throwing a baseball on field with success. That's what we got from the pitcher.
Touch quickly on some of the social media stuff. So first thing would be if you could all follow us on the different social media platforms that we have. That's a great start to everything. So we have Twitter, we have an Instagram. If you could go ahead and follow those athletes, parents, you're all welcome to follow. We're talking about using social media a little bit as a tool. So for us, for our sake, Instagram is where we do a lot of highlighting athletes and creating some of the entertainment value that we want, as well as just making athletes feel great about themselves. Some of the hype videos we had this summer, different things like that that highlighted our athletes in really cool ways. That has value because it's great for showcasing things. It's great for, like I said, making athletes feel great about themselves. Twitter is a little bit more of like a tool for what you're putting out to the outside world, including college coaches. So 14U players, we're probably not talking about you guys, very small minority of 15U guys, 16U, 17U, 18U. We're starting to get more into how Twitter and potentially some of the videos that you put out there for yourself can help you in the process of getting to the next level. Now, it's part of knowing kind of what to expect from that is knowing where you're at realistically. Okay, so if you're a 15-year-old or 16-year-old that's throwing 67 miles an hour and you're out there tagging LSU, it's probably not, LSU coach probably isn't looking. Okay, so knowing realistically where you're at is a really important thing. But when you are at a level where it's worth showcasing, Twitter is a great tool. An easy way to do that is to have you tag us, and then we will do a lot of retweeting, reposting, things like that, that allows us to help you with your posts showcase your athlete. And we are happy to do that. If you send us 4 videos every weekend, we're not going to retweet all 4 of them. We will do it strategically and in moderation, but we will do it. Okay, and it will not just be for our top team athletes. It will be for all of our athletes. We're happy to showcase anybody and everybody. Okay, but doing things like tagging us in a Twitter post about a very good thing that happens on a baseball field is definitely something that you can and should do. If, like I said, just make sure that you know that if it's a bunch of it, we're not going to do all of them, but it is a good thing to do. It could also go, if you want to send us videos specifically to our email or DM us videos on our Twitter account, we will repost those from time to time as well. So if you don't want it to come directly from your account, that's okay. We can do some of that as well. I don't want you to overthink this too much. I just want you to know that there are some... Twitter is like a cesspool of negative a lot of the times, but Twitter can be used as a good tool. And I just want you to know that it is something that we see as a valuable thing for your athlete if it's used the right way. If you have any specific questions about that, we're happy to answer them. But I believe that all athletes, as they're going up, if they aspire to play college baseball, should have a Twitter. Okay, you can talk about who to follow and what's good and all that different type of stuff, but if you don't have a Twitter, we encourage you to get one. And parents, same thing. If the only thing you have the Twitter for is just to help your son post different things, and athletes, same thing. If the only reason why you have a Twitter is to post your stuff to try to help you, that's a perfectly acceptable reason to have Twitter. If that's the only thing you want to do with it, that's totally fine. But it is a good tool to be able to use. This is a good example of it. Chase Gasner tagged us in it. I'm in Lumberjacks hitting a 2-run home run. Okay, awesome. We're happy to retweet that. It's a great thing that our athlete did. We liked it, retweeted it. Drew Rogers, same thing, or Will Rogers, Rogers family, Nancy Rogers. Same thing. That's just an example of what that might look like. So a quick caption of what happened, tagging us, and we'll take it from there. So specifically, what's next after this meeting? If you're a 14U player here, these 2 things are not something that you guys are participating in. Okay, so the first thing that 14U players have is this. Everybody has these 2 things. 14U players are not a part of this. 15U and older. Monday night team builder event. We consider that to be as mandatory as a practice would be. Okay? So we expect that you will be there, that attendance will be there, and that you'll make it a priority. Red shirt, black shorts, hat. Team builder event, we'll send out more specific information of times and all that different type of stuff in an email to you. But it's just a way for all the teams to get together, and we do some physical things that help build camaraderie and build trust amongst each of the athletes and their teams, gets them to know each other, and try to create that really cool team environment right from the start. Tuesday morning lone survival is 100% optional. That is only for athletes that want to show up and really, really push themselves to some physical levels that are probably well beyond what they're normally used to. Okay? We'll be safe, obviously, about it, but you do not feel like you have to attend this. This is 5:30 in the morning. We are meeting here on Tuesday to do this. 5:30 a.m. So if you are interested in doing that, get here at 5:30. We'll talk about what we're going to do, and we go over to a park and put them through a bunch of different stuff, but it is 100% optional. And you not being there doesn't mean that you're soft. Ask Tim, will tell you something different. Tim thinks you're soft if you're not there. If you're not there, it doesn't mean you're soft, but we do want everybody that's there. You are making a statement that you want to push yourself that day. You're not trying to get out easy, because if you're trying to get out easy, you'll be done in the first 5 minutes, and then you wasted your time getting up at 4:30 in the morning anyways. You're trying to push yourself if you're at this one, okay? Now everybody, 14 and older, Tuesday night team practice. Your specific time of your team, you know that from your team email as far as which one you're at. But that's the Tuesday night team practice out at the University of Northwestern. Red shirt, baseball pants, and a hat. And then Wednesday or Thursday, small groups. So that's what we talked about earlier with it being Woodbury, Arden Hills, but you're picking one or the other. Some of them are on Wednesday, some are on Thursday. Some groups have both of them on Wednesday, both of them on Thursday, but you're only picking one. So that's the next thing after Tuesday night practice is Wednesday and or Thursday night small groups. All right, so that's a layout of your first week. The following week, yep, question?
This question on, so tomorrow night on Monday night, do they bring their ball stuff, or is this
Nope.
stuff, no ball?
No baseball, great question. No baseball equipment necessary for this or this. This is just these apparel items, and you show up and be ready to do it. Yep.
What time is the Tuesday one?
Great question. Do you remember what it was last year?
9.
What?
9.
9? Is 9 fair or is 9?
Oh, lone survival.
Sorry, the lone survival. What time in the morning will be done? Do you know the answer?
Last year, I believe we got back to the facility at like 7:45, 8. So basically till last man standing, which I think last year the final person came through, Aiden Kincho, throwing up over his shoulder at about 7:15, 7:30. By the time we get back here, it's 7:45, 8. So roughly around that. We'll come back here with the athletes. We'll stay with the athletes until they get picked up. So don't stress about that. It's 8:30 and you can't get back till 8:45. We'll be here with the athletes till parents have to drop them off, pick them up.
What other questions about the upcoming week? Any schedule questions at all? Good. Okay. So just in review, player-parent code of conduct, again, that'll be coming out tomorrow. We talked about some of the things that are important in that. Just please keep in mind how important those are to us, that you're able to uphold that. Any scheduling conflicts, that's been the flurry of emails that you've gotten from me mostly, is making sure you know the schedule, and then subsequently we know what conflicts that you have in that schedule. 90% of you have gotten back to us on that, and that's awesome. If you have not gotten back to me on that yet, please do so. I will reach out in an email tomorrow if I haven't heard from you, just saying that I haven't. So if you're wondering if I got your answer or not, if you don't hear me by tomorrow, just know that I got you. But if I haven't heard from you by tomorrow, I'll just email you saying that would love to get the answer so we know ahead of time on any roster conflicts. Last thing, they'll be setting up an online uniform store that will be getting out to you guys this upcoming week for you to be able to order any apparel. That was set up by these guys over here, so if you haven't had a chance to talk with them, please make sure that you do that afterwards. It's a great way for us to get, for you guys to get apparel that is more like parent and player, that's not the red shirt and the black hat, the above and beyond stuff, and it's super, super sharp and great quality. So please make sure you talk with him, and you'll get a link for an online store as well later this week to be able to order anything you need. And then lastly, if you have not bought a Jagger band, or you don't have a Jagger band yet, a J band yet, please make sure you do that at the end of this. Stop by the table out there so that everybody at the first Tuesday night practice has a J-band because it will be mandatory that you have that. That's part of our warm-up. Yep.
Question about uniforms and color suites.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yep. Oh, and then, so the topic of uniform, yep. Oh, sorry, color of cleats. Doesn't matter. Yep, doesn't matter. I'm personally not like a lime green fan. Like the neutral colors are good, but honestly, we don't care. As far as what your actual uniforms are, a lot of you have uniforms from previous seasons. Unless you have heard from me already, you will be using those uniforms again. If you are new to the academy, we're going to be communicating with you about what, how and when and what it will look like to be able to get your uniform, obviously, before we play our first game. Okay? But if you have not heard from me at all and you've been with us in previous seasons, that means that you're just using the uniform that you had in the past. That's your jersey. And then the white pants, like I said, really want it to be plain white if at all possible. Those will be on you guys to get. And then the black hat you're getting from us, black socks, black belt, you'll be on your own to get that as well. And that should complete the whole uniform. Don't care about like catcher equipment, color or anything like that. Doesn't matter. Trying to think of anything else. Any other questions on that you have? Helmet doesn't matter either. I know we've had, I don't know if you want to touch on that at all. We've had helmets for sale, but it doesn't actually matter if they don't want to use it, right? So we have helmets. If you would like to purchase a helmet, we have a limited stock of helmets, but it's not important to us that in games you're necessarily wearing a Great Lakes helmet. Whatever helmet you feel comfortable with wearing, that's totally fine. What other questions about anything, any of this do you guys have? Happy to answer anything you have. Good?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Does it have to do with fall season?
Yep.
For summer season trials
Yep.
next year? Is that just for national team trials, or is the tryouts at the end of this month for all level of?
All level.
Okay.
Yeah, all level. And we run less summer teams, but that's just typically been because of the interest in the make sure that when we travel nationally, we put teams together that are as competitive as they can be. But yes, great question. That summer tryout's coming up. Yeah, all of it. Absolutely. Yep, all of it.
Is the
Yep.
winter schedule online already to order all that stuff? No?
For training?
Yeah.
No, that is not out yet. Yep. But it'll be somewhat similar to last year. I think we'll run 2-day a week, 3-day a week hitting. We'll have a more extensive programs that you guys will hear about too. But
Okay.
yeah, none of the winter stuff is out yet. Hopefully that's probably mid-fall. Once we get past summer team tryouts for 2023, that's when we'll turn the page into our winter training. You guys will hear about that. You'll always hear from us about another link that you can. Anything else? Good. 7:23. That's not too bad. Good job, guys. Thank you.